Okay, hi everybody. It's Lee Norwood with the College Sharks and Annapolis College Consulting, and we are here today to talk about outside scholarships. So, if you know me and you work with me, you know that I usually say the juice is not worth the squeeze, right? Because my job is to make sure you pick the right schools for your student, someplace where they're going to thrive, do well, and where it fits academically, geographically, sometimes with sports and things like that for their personality and also financially. So the most money you'll ever get towards the price of or the cost of attendance at a school will typically be from the institution itself because that's going to be larger chunks of money. But a lot of you ask about outside scholarships, and I don't want to ignore that because it is a way you can be very successful with chunking down the price of college. So I brought my friend Dave here today, and we are going to talk a little bit about outside scholarships. What are they? Who can earn those outside scholarships? When the heck should your kids start applying for them? How do students earn these scholarships? And then back to my original question, is the juice worth the squeeze? So you'll hear Dave and I argue a little bit tonight, and that'll be great. So without further ado, I would like to introduce you to Dave, the scholarship coach. Go ahead, Dave.
Thank you, Lee. Thanks so much for having me tonight. I appreciate it. Hello, everybody. As Lee said, I am Dave Peterson. If you run into me online, you might find that I go by the moniker Dave the Scholarship Coach. Just a little bit about me. I got into the world of scholarships because I had failed to save enough money to send my son to college. And thankfully, I realized that before it was too late. I knew that scholarships were a thing. And so when he started high school, I thought I need to start looking into this. And when I found out just how far short we were on funds, I spent about the next year learning everything I could about scholarships. Try to make the long story short here. He started applying as a high school junior. We had a good amount of success that year. He dove all in senior year. By the end of senior year, he had won, I forget the raw number, but something like 18 outside scholarships, enough that a lot of our friends and family took notice and asked my help for their kids. So got my son sent off to school. He continued to apply and earn scholarships. He recently graduated from college. Net, we spent $1,500 for his entire college experience. That was room, board, books, fees, the whole thing. Between my experience working with him and then working with some friends and family's kids over that next year, realized that there is a pattern and a process, and that is how and why I started my business, Scholarship GPS. And basically, my role as a scholarship coach is to help students and their parents on their own scholarship journey.
Thank you for being here. I think that's awesome. I love hearing that kind of success. Just to share a little bit about me. So my daughter, a little bit different. We got a lot of money from FAFSA. So we had that income piece that allowed the school to give us some grants and things, and then got merit aid towards college, and then got some departmental scholarships. So I think we got her down significantly in going to school and not leaving us saddled with a lot of debt. So that is the goal here. So lots of ways to cut through some of this financial piece. So here we go. It's based on types of scholarships: need, merit, and outside. Like I've said, we help you with the need and the merit. Dave's going to help you with the outside scholarships, and that's going to be based on time and effort. But when Dave sent this slide to me, I was like, whoa, whoa, whoa. Need isn't just based on income, and merit isn't just based on talent. Need-based aid is going to come from either the government in the form of a Pell Grant, if you do or do not qualify for that. Most of you will not. They will also give you a student index number, and that's found through the FAFSA or the CSS profile. And different schools meet different amounts of need. So I've always jokingly said, if you're broke and brilliant and you put together a good application, there is need-based aid. But a lot of you don't fall into that category. Merit aid, as we've talked about before, it's about what schools are on your list, what your application looks like, what classes did you take, what grades did you get, how are your test scores, did the teachers give you good recommendations, essays, which we're talking about now, leadership in a few activities, and then how and different ways that you might be unique. Go ahead, Dave. Talk about these need-based scholarships really quick. We'll just kind of fly through this.
Yeah, so Lee, like most of the families you work with, very few families I work with qualify for need-based scholarships. But just at a high level, like you said, this typically comes through the college, could be based on the family's FAFSA or CSS profile. Um, Really, just at a very basic level, the higher your income, the less you're going to get in need-based scholarships. And Lee, I'm thrilled to hear that you do help people, guide people with this because I don't get involved with this process at all. So. Yeah. Merit-based scholarships, completely agree with what you said, Lee, in terms of building that story through leadership and grades and, maybe outside employment. What I call it the student's personal narrative, and that piece does translate to helping students earn outside scholarships.
Yeah, I guess I would assume that when you're doing all of this to apply to the college itself, you're uncovering a lot of things about yourself. You're writing a lot of essays and things, and those things can probably be used again with with the different tools that you're going to have because you always have to write about yourself, tell about
Yes.
yourself, and know what your strengths are.
So, I guess the one thing I do want to say about merit aid is that it's not always a given. Now, there are some colleges where you can find a grid on their financial aid website, and if you meet certain SAT or ACT plus a certain GPA threshold, you'll know exactly what merit aid you're going to qualify for. Now, that's typically, I think, probably more state colleges, kind of state flagships, but there's some private schools that do it as well. But I just pulled this from Facebook. This is actually about a year old. Don't know this person personally, but just thought it was very interesting and kind of indicative of some things that I see pretty regularly. And that's, no matter how great of a student is, and here we have a class valedictorian with a perfect ACT, lots of things on, I don't remember if it was a, male or female, on their resume, but basically the school this student wanted to go to, they got in, but school said, no, we're not giving you anything. And again, we're talking about class valedictorian here. Ultimately, the student did get into the state flagship school, but they only gave it's him 3,000 for that year. So, um, again, if you're working with somebody like Lee, I know that she's going to give you some guidance on the schools that are going to give you some good financial aid offers. So I don't want to overstress this, but I do find, especially this time of year, a lot of the Facebook groups I'm in, parents are very surprised at the lack of merit aid their students are getting.
Oh, I had one today just call and say, we got 100,000 at one school and less at this other. We tried to play them against each other. They graciously said thanks, but no thanks.
Hmm.
But I think if we zoom back out to about a year ago when we look at this, we have the data that shows how much merit aid and to what percentage of the kids a lot of these schools give it to.
Yeah.
So I read this and I think, well, he applied to the wrong school because I could have told him rolling in, wow, if this is Vanderbilt, they're not going to give you any money. They don't have to. It's an enrollment tool. But then you and I just discussed earlier that it wasn't Vanderbilt. It was a school that should have been accessible to him. So then I'm thinking, yes, a lot of you guys get curveballs when you get these letters and you break down the scholarship money. We always have to go back to, did we do all the right things in ninth, 10th, 11th, and 12th grade to qualify for this? And then sometimes the school, maybe a school would say, he just applied here, but he's not going to go here. With stats like that, my school is probably just on his safety list. So they may be protecting their yield. Either way, the answer kind of stinks for the family, right?
Yeah.
Here's another one.
Yep. So this is one of my students, class of 2025 grad. She will be graduating in a couple weeks, and her story is much more positive than that last student that we saw. We helped her, I should say, I helped her earn a full tuition scholarship. Now, this is one of those that I guess technically would fall into the merit aid bucket because this full tuition scholarship came from one of the colleges that she applied to. However, it was not an automatic thing. It wasn't solely based on her grades or test scores. This required a pretty lengthy process, including an interview, and that's why I highlighted that at the bottom.
Absolutely.
Yep. So this is really where I do the bulk of my work, though, and that's with outside scholarships. And while certainly having a high GPA and high test scores are not going to hurt you with outside scholarships, I want to stress that that's not the only thing they're looking for. In fact, a student's personal narrative is far more indicative of their ability to earn scholarships. The greatest indicative thing will be how much time and effort they put into it, though. These don't come from the colleges, they come from businesses and philanthropic organizations. Like Lee said, typically for most students, the bulk of aid, of financial aid or scholarships will come from the college. For us, it was different. Two-thirds of what my son earned came from outside scholarships. So maybe a little unusual, but not perhaps as unusual as you might think. So this is kind of where we'll be spending the bulk of the rest of the conversation, I think.
Yeah, and I hear this too, the scholarship myths, we make too much money, students' grades are too low, my kid's not an athlete. This one was interesting to me though, Dave, when we talked. My student is too young. You're talking to kids that are even younger than the families that are on with us now, saying that you can even get this ball rolling earlier. But now most of you guys who are on today were a class of 2026. It is not too late. Selfishly, I want you to work on your application first and then use your time to chase outside scholarships. But I think after talking with Dave, just finding out if you have a plan, you can make things happen. So
Yep,
here's some of those
absolutely.
myths. Go ahead and bust those up, Dave.
Yeah, so this is definitely the biggest myth that I hear is we make too much money. Now that does apply if you're applying for need-based aid through FAFSA or the CSS profile, but the vast majority of outside scholarships don't look at income at all. It's not even a question on the application form. Um, However, there are some outside scholarships that do consider it, but it's not necessarily their only factor. In fact, every year I've done this, including when I started with my son, there is one very large, well-known scholarship that awards about 4,000 prizes a year. They do ask questions about finances, but my son earned it, and we are not a need-based family. A couple years ago, I had the daughter of two dentists earn it. So even if they're asking that, don't necessarily think that you can't earn it because especially if they're giving away a lot of prizes, they're going to run out of people who are quote need-based applicants. Students' grades. So many outside scholarships don't even ask about GPA. Now, there certainly are plenty that do, but often that threshold is lower than many people expect. In fact, that one I mentioned previously, their minimum threshold was only 2.0 to be considered as an applicant. I'd say of those that are out there that are going to ask about your GPA, 3.0 is kind of the typical minimum threshold. So if you have a 3.0 or higher, there's virtually no scholarship that you wouldn't be able to apply for. Um, Even fewer outside scholarships ask about test scores. Now, personally believe test scores can be very helpful for merit aid. And it's not that there are zero outside scholarships that will ask about test scores, but it's not something that I would overemphasize on my piece of the thing. The big thing is the student's personal narrative. Spend too much time on the athletics. I don't expect people who are on this call are necessarily thinking their kid's going to get the full ride for quarterback scholarship to play at Florida State or anything like that. But only about 2% of high school athletes earn any type of scholarship, and it's even much fewer that it's a full ride. In terms of outside scholarships, there are very few that even have a sports focus. However, sports can be a great part of a student's personal narrative. One student I'm working with this year is a soccer player, and he's going into sports medicine. And so we wrote some really nice personal narrative essays around his love of soccer. This one is one that I think probably after we make too much money, I hear far too often that's my student is too young to earn scholarships. Now, yes, if you look at the picture there, if you have a baby, they are too young to earn scholarships.
Mhm.
But if you have a first grader, they are not too young. There are scholarships for grade school students. In fact, in my newsletter, I just recently published one that's open to from grade school all the way through college. So definitely not too young. This is one of my 10th grade students this year. She earned $5,000 from this VFW Voice of Democracy scholarship. And this is not her first scholarship. She's already won $15,000 in outside scholarships, and she's only a sophomore.
Wow. Tell me about this scholarship and how did she find it or you help her find it? That's really cool.
Yeah, so this is my favorite scholarship on the planet. It's actually the first one my son earned some money from. The VFW Veterans of Foreign War offers this every year. It's open right now, does not close until October 31st. No GPA requirement. This is one that's not a personal narrative type S or type scholarship though. This one, they have an essay prompt. It's different every year. Always going to be on something patriotic, considering the source here. And you enter at your local VFW post. You don't have to have any affiliation with the VFW. Nobody in your family has to be a veteran. Um, they get very few entrance applications per post. So you face very little competition at that local level. And if you write a good essay, chances are you can earn a little small prize there. If you get first place at the post, you move up to the district, from there to the state, and then from there to the nationals. Top prize at nationals is $35,000. That is just from the national. The winner already won money at their state and local level as well, so it's more than that. And in total, they give, I think it's like 1.3, $1.5 million out every year. So,
That's
and
amazing.
that one is open for ninth, 10th, 11th, and 12th grade students. So probably everybody on here has a student who could apply for that.
That's incredible. And finding opportunities like that are real
Yeah, yep.
are awesome. Because I find that I tell families to use a site like Going Mary where they'll go in and they'll search, but you just get caught up in so many of these, like no essay needed. I'm thinking, well,
Hmm.
but how do they pick? Is it like a lottery? So these seem real, like you could really get your hands around it, and that's awesome. So it's not too late.
Not too late. So I do speak to a lot of people about this time of year, who like class of 2025 families who are panicking. How are we going to pay for this
Mhm.
school? The bad news for class of 2025 is that it's probably too late to earn anything to pay for that first semester, but it's not too late to earn something to pay for, semesters 2 through 8 or plus. There are scholarships open to college students. In fact, there's senior year is the big year. It's the peak of the bell curve, but there are just still tons of opportunities open to college students. For us, that was still amounted to about 20% of what my son earned. So very important that you keep applying until you get everything that you need. My five-step process for earning scholarships, finding them, like Lee indicated, finding them can be a little bit daunting. There are tons of sources out there. If anything, there's probably too many sources and people get overwhelmed. So I do help people kind of narrow that down. That second piece is that narrowing down. So if you spend any time looking for scholarships, you'll find way more than the student could possibly hope to apply for. So there's strategies and tactics around filtering that list, knowing which ones give the students the best odds of winning. That third step is applying. That's obviously the most crucial piece. Um, just a little tidbit, 90% of outside scholarship applicants are rejected. Now, obviously, it varies from scholarship to scholarship, but every scholarship provider I talk to tells me the same thing. And I talk to a ton of them. And they hit something like 90% rejection rate simply because students don't follow directions. So basic thing that you probably should have learned in grade school will go a long way to helping you earn scholarships. Fourth step, keep track of everything. What scholarships are upcoming that I need to be mindful of the deadlines, which scholarships have I applied for so that I know to be checking my email every day, looking for that notification if I won. And then step five, if you just win a single scholarship, then that's great. Congratulations. But if you start to win lots of scholarships, you need to know how do you get every dime out of everything you won, because sometimes you might earn more than you need for that first year. So knowing which scholarships will allow you to defer, which ones won't, basically getting you know everything that you put your hard work into. So that's that fifth step. What do you do when you win?
That's awesome. I just want to like rewind a little bit and the things that you said that are true no matter what. A, follow directions. We've got
Yeah.
to do that. We have to do that. Communicate and check your email. Those are three things that like I find really difficult for a lot of these high school kids. I don't know if they're getting bombarded with emails or if they set up with all the gaming systems so the emails are kind of sound like Charlie Brown's teacher to them, but with college and with scholarships, checking and staying on top of stuff is just so uber important. Um, so this is the whole thing. Is the juice worth the squeeze? I want to hear from you guys. We're going to open this up so that Dave can answer any of your questions. We are recording this, so we will send it to you. And Dave's got some great resources that we're going to make available to you after this. So just take a look at the five things that we talked about tonight. And before you do anything else, you definitely need to listen to the Scholarship GPS podcast and get on Dave's email list, because I get a scholarship from him every single day. These are free resources. Stick around after the Q&A, and we're going to give you some pretty hefty discounts to work with Dave if that is what you choose to do. So ways to get in touch with Dave. Tell me a little bit about the self-paced learning GPS course.
Yep. So Scholarship GPS, my flagship program. This is an online video-based course, on-demand videos, bite-sized lessons. So lessons are anywhere from like 3 minutes to 5 minutes typically. Couple outliers that are maybe like 10 or 15 minutes where the particular topic couldn't be said as brief as I might have liked. It's for both parents and students. I recommend both go through it. For the course, I charge typically $197. That's for family lifetime access. Once you have it, it's yours to keep and use forever. But I am offering a 30% discount for those who are both live and watching the recording by using coupon code SHARK.
And then your other thing is the Scholarship Navigator. Tell me about that.
Yep. So this is more of a personalized service. Scholarship Navigator students and families still get access to the course as long as they are a member of the program. But in addition to the course, they get online support. So answering questions that they have about scholarships. I also, at the initial outset of starting, I build a custom list of scholarships based on the student's profile. So these are scholarships that match that student's personal narrative. And probably the most important piece is my help with their applications and essays. Now, I'm not going to write an essay for a student, but I will help edit. I will provide suggestions. I will give tips. I will say you're way off base, or this is great, just make this slight adjustment. And we go through as many rounds of review and feedback as needed until we're satisfied that this is as good as we can make it. We're going to hit submit, rinse and repeat.
So I have some questions for you.
All right.
This one is great. This is a very good friend of mine who says, can you talk a little bit more about how to search for scholarships for kids already enrolled in college? And I want to give a short answer too. Should they focus on their major, or does that not matter? So first of all, just for all of you in 2025 class, now that you're in, go and look for departmental scholarships in your school. So it might not be at the top of your mind to think that, but like as soon as you get into that School of Engineering, you might have a bunch of opportunities open for you from the college. But back to this question is, should they focus within their major, or does it not matter if you're looking for scholarships and you're already in college?
I would probably start with the student's major. Again, it goes back to that student's personal narrative. So their major is probably a big piece of their narrative. One of the, I think, common misconceptions about outside scholarships is that they're not necessarily awards for the things the student has done in the past. They are more, think about it from the business that's giving the student the money. They want to be able to brag, hey, we helped Billy, do this thing in the future. And this thing in the future doesn't have to be that Billy cured cancer or that he, brought about world peace. It can be much more modest. But that student's personal narrative, where they're going, and then being able to point back on the resume of, I did X, Y, and Z. This proves that I can actually achieve these things. That's kind of how you mesh the future looking with the backward looking to build that personal narrative from the scholarship essay program or point of view. So should they focus on their major when looking for scholarships? I would echo what Lee said in terms of checking for departmental scholarships. That'd be the first place I would look if somebody tasked me with finding scholarships for a college student. And then beyond that, for outside scholarships, yes, I would find ones that probably match the student's major. But that doesn't necessarily mean, let's say the student is an engineering major. That doesn't mean you only want to look for scholarships that say the word engineering in it. It could be you want to find a scholarship where you could broaden it to STEM, or you could even find something that you know this is not a real scholarship, at least to my knowledge, but let's say there was a scholarship for Legos. Well, an engineer probably enjoys playing with Legos and could write a really compelling essay around that. So you do want to stay focused on the student's interests and abilities, but broaden that search a little bit. Don't go apply for a nursing scholarship if you're an engineering major.
And how do you find those scholarships? Like on your site, is there a searchable thing? Do we Google it? Like help?
Yeah, so That is one thing that I do with the students who are in the Navigator program. I build that custom list for them, and then if they continue in the program for a period of time, they'll get updated lists. Mary is a pretty decent site. The one caution I would have is that they have what they call scholarship bundles, and so they will find scholarships that have a very similar theme, perhaps even a almost identical essay topic, allow you to apply for these multiple scholarships with one application on the Going Merry platform. Do not do that for two reasons. One, Going Merry does not always have the latest essay prompt, even though they should. They don't. So you might be answering an essay prompt from last year's, round of the scholarship, and now it's not going to match. Reason number two, unless you are diligent in knowing about which exact scholarships are in this bundle, when you're outside of Going Merry and you run into this same scholarship and you apply, well, now this organization has two applications from you, and they say, no, you can't. You can only apply once. Now you're disqualified. So um,
Okay.
be very careful of that. And the same would apply for Scholarship Owl as well.
How about College Board?
Hmm.
You found that then College Board, you guys are probably familiar with them taking all your money because they do the SATs and the AP tests, but they also have Big Future, and I've
Yep.
never looked at it for scholarships. Talk about that.
Yeah, so that is one that is really up and coming. It was one that I kind of ignored for a long time, and in the last couple of years, they have really built that database. So you can find a lot of great scholarships on Big Future. And like you said, because they're the SAT and the AP organization, your student probably already has an account there. So they can, I think, just log in using the same username and password, get into the Big Future site, and find some good scholarships there.
I am going to wrap this call up. I want to thank you, Dave, for having the argument with me about how students' time is best used. I think it's not an either or, I think it's an and both, right?
Yes, that would
Um,
be my opinion as well.
They'll have an arsenal of good colleges where they'd love to go. We'll maximize the merit aid if a college gives it. And you have to remember, merit aid is an enrollment tool. Merit aid is used as a carrot to get you to want to come to that school. That's why Harvard, Stanford, they don't offer merit aid. They don't have to. So it is an enrollment tool. So putting the right schools on your list is always, I think, the very most important. Then we'll work on the merit aid and financial aid we may get from the school. In the meantime, in the background, you could be working on Dave's scholarships. I know I find it daunting. So I think having a guide would be very helpful. So Dave, thank you for your time tonight. I'm going to,
Thank you so much for inviting me.
yeah, I want to be on your podcast.
Well, we got to get you on the schedule.
Sounds good. Yeah, we
Yeah.
could duke it out, right? Okay, everybody. Thank you for letting us work with your most precious asset, which is typically, on a good day, your child. We really like working with all of you. You know, my door is open. Adrian's door is open. Call us, text us, email us at any time. We are ready to work this summer as fast as you're ready to go. Okay, everybody, have a great day. Thank you so much.